All right. Okay. Can I start?
Yes.
All right. Good morning to you all. We're going to start the second session of the AQoL2022 conference, and we have 7 presenters actually this morning lined up, and we will start with the first group of presenters, and each presenter, as you know, by regulation, has 15 minutes to present, and it will be followed by question session. We will start with the first presenter, who is first presentation, which is case study of strata lease schemes in Malaysia, features and uniqueness. It's presented by Noor Hasaifa, Safrina Samsudin, Fatina Afika, and Siddiqa Amin. Could you please upload your presentation and start your presentation? I would like this, while you are uploading your presentation, I would like this presentation to be lively, to be followed by a good discussion. So I would appreciate you to pay attention to the presentation and figure out where the questions could be raised so that we can support the participants to develop their papers eventually. Thank you. Who is presenting? Is it Noor? Or is it Sabrina? Okay, that's great. Let's start the presentations, please.
Assalamualaikum, good afternoon. Can my voice be heard?
Yes, you are clear. You are heard. Please go ahead.
All right. I'm adjusting the camera. Okay. So I'm ready. If we would like to begin. Come on ke sini. Tak dengar.
Yes, please start the presentation. It's 11:10 here.
Okay. Is it clear now?
Yep. Please go ahead.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon and assalamualaikum to all presented here. Actually, I would like to present a case study. This is my second presentation with this committee. I presented a similar paper, which is somewhere around early this year. So this is actually an extension of that paper. So basically, my topic will be a case study of strata lease scheme in Malaysia, the features and its uniqueness. My name is Noor Huzaifa Zainal. My co-authors are Ms. Safarina Samsudin, Fatin Afika, and Ms. Siddiqa Amin. Most of us are from UTM, Universiti Teknologi Malaysia, and only Ms. Siddiqa Amin is from Department of City Regional in Lahore College of Women University in Lahore, Pakistan. Okay. So a little bit of the study background. The objective is to outline between a strata scheme and a strata lease scheme. Okay. And the study is about to identify, is there any other scheme besides the normal strata scheme according to the National Land Code, Strata Title Act, and the Strata Management Act. Okay, the aim of the study is to show that there is a several type of strata scheme or strata lease scheme in Malaysia. There is not one type. And what we are trying to do is that before this, we are known that there is only strata scheme, which is strata buildings in Malaysia. But there is no identification of what kind of a strata building there is in Malaysia. Okay, a strata scheme is actually a stratified building, which includes the common area, individual parcels, and it has its own strata title. These are the general description of a strata building in Malaysia. Normally, sometimes it is known as strata scheme, and in some countries it is known as community title scheme, condominium schemes, and also owners corporation scheme. Okay, problem statement. Okay, this is what we are trying to identify. We are trying to tell there is such of other type of strata building in Malaysia. It's not that what you see, the physical buildings with a common area that is shared by everybody, with its own strata title and its own facility like swimming pools and hall, and the thing that is shared by the owners. we are trying to show that there is other type of strata scheme that has a similarity but a differences in terms of administration and in terms of the law governed. Okay. So a little bit of the literature review. In this literature review, I divided into 3 scopes. One is to explain the conventional strata scheme, the regular strata scheme that we normally see in Malaysia. One is that, according to Kamaru and Izanda, development of strata scheme is a building. It's a subdivided building where they divide into parcels. When each of these units, the units of the strata, has its own title, which we call strata title. And also, according to Chu and Inzada also, that there is a certain rights on these units. They have the right of apprenticeship, they have the right of using the common area, they have the rights of managing the scheme, and they also have the rights to make rules and also to terminate the schemes. Okay, another one is that, according to Faisal, there is 2 reasons of having a strata scheme. It is intended to be used as a parcel by the owner, and there's another intended of using commonly the common area, which is the swimming pool, for example, to be used by all units owners. Okay, the process of a strata development is requires the planning, building, approval, and also a strata certificate of unit share application to land office, and also the application of certified strata planning, certified strata plan, which is applied to JUPM. Once strata title is issued, there is a transfer of ownership from the developer to the buyer, according to the unit that is being bought by the buyers. Okay, moving towards these are the conventional, these are the more normal things that we see in Malaysia. Okay, is there anything that is not what I've explained before? Yes, according to Zainal, Zamri, Abu Bakar, Musid, and Zainuddin, they found that there is another type of strata scheme, which is a strata lease scheme. What is a strata lease scheme? A strata lease scheme is actually when you have a strata title, instead of selling the ownership.
Your sound is breaking. Could you get closer to the mic?
Sorry, I'm actually moving towards outside from the mic. Okay, when you are selling a strata title, there is a transfer of ownership. You own the unit, but instead of transferring the ownership, you are actually leasing out the unit by buying a lease for 99 years. This is what we call a strata lease scheme. Okay, there is a few definition of strata lease scheme, which are, according to Zainal, Zainal call it strata lease scheme, Zamri and Abu Bakar call it private lease scheme, and even Mohsin and Zainuddin define it as strata private lease scheme. But how is it? How does this lease scheme come into existence? According to Zainal, whenever all strata title is registered with lease, it is called strata lease scheme. According to Zainuddin and Mohsin, when there is a mechanism of lease onto a stratified building, then this building is called strata lease scheme. And according to Abu Bakar and Zamri, a strata lease scheme or a private lease scheme, what they call it as a private lease scheme, is a scheme, is a development that is introduced in Johor to enhance leasing, the selling of lease onto strata buildings. So this is what we call the non-conventional strata scheme. Okay, but in our study, we want to define, is there any other type of scheme than normal strata scheme that we see in Malaysia? Okay, classifying a development of strata scheme. According to Antonian and Bloomley, normally a strata scheme is defined as either is a residential development or commercial development or a mixed development. And according to Abdullah and Mazuki, normally this kind of a development of a building is always tied to the National Land Code Act, where the National Land Code Act defines the land use according to residential, commercial, industrial, or a mixed use. Okay, so for this study, we want to discover or we want to explore what are the schemes, are the different schemes that we can find in Malaysia. So the case study subject will be in Penang and Johor. Why? We actually explored the whole of Malaysia and we found that only in Penang and Johor, they have this kind of a lease scheme.
the one that sells lease instead of transfer of ownership. So we take these schemes and we put it into our case study. We use a non-structured interview. Why? Because we want to get as much as possible the experience of the respondent to put into the case study, so that we can tell that based on their experience, how they govern the units, how to see the differences with how they govern the normal schemes and the lease schemes. Okay, besides that, we also have a documentation review, like such as planning permission, subdivision of strata files, minutes of meeting, and other relevant documents. Okay, this is what we found. We found that, number one, there is several types of strata scheme. Okay, let me explain the conventional one, the normal, the one that we see. As you drive around, when you see a stratified building, a high-rise building, we call it a strata building. That is a strata scheme. Of course, strata scheme, you have a unit which belongs to the buyer. When you bought a strata unit, you will have your own unit. For example, I bought an apartment, so I am the owner of my unit. They also provide swimming pools, hall, gym. These are the common areas which I share with other buyers. These are normally the conventional, the strata scheme that normally are explained or understood by all. And inside this kind of scheme, all registered proprietors, which are me, for example, I bought the unit. Once a strata title is issued to me, I am registered inside the strata title as the owner of my unit, which means I am the registered proprietor. And as a registered proprietor, I can form my own management committee, which they call it management corporation, where I can as myself and other buyers, we are able to manage our own building. Okay, this is normally we see in a strata scheme. But what inside this study we found that there is another type of scheme which they call it private lease scheme, and also a strata lease scheme which they call it a Medini scheme and Waqaf scheme. Let me explain. Let me explain on Medini and Waqaf scheme. Medini scheme, it's called Medini scheme because it is located in Medini, Johor, Iskandaria. This development in Medini, they actually is a development of a township where instead of selling the property, they lease out the property for 99 days. Why? Because the reason is that they cannot put out a transfership of land or proprietorship to the owner, because the target buyers for Medini land in Johor was the foreigner. It was a foreign direct investment policy to sell out to the foreigners, especially the Singaporeans, the Chinese, the Chinese from China, so that they are owning a land in Malaysia, which is in Johor, but we are not transferring our land proprietorship to them. That is the reason why they lease out the unit. This is what we call strata lease scheme. As in, okay, from Johor, let's move to Penang. We have the Waqaf scheme. The Waqaf scheme is where the development of strata building is being brought or being constructed on a Waqaf land. Okay, some of us understood what is Waqaf land. Let me explain. A Waqaf land is a land that has to comply with the Sharia law, which is the Waqaf law. Waqaf law says that there is no such thing of transfer ownership within the Waqaf entity. Meaning, if you have a Waqaf building, you cannot transfer the ownership to anyone. So, to develop a strata building on a Waqaf land, they actually embark on the opportunity of selling it through a lease. So, we have a few several schemes in Penang, which is on Waqaf land. This is what we call Waqaf strata lease scheme. Okay, another one is a private lease scheme. A private lease scheme is actually some would say that it is similar to strata lease scheme, but to us, no. A private lease scheme was actually being explored by the government many years ago to see is there any other opportunity of another type of lease, another type of lease property that we can use under the National Land Code, under Strata Title Act and the Strata Management Act, where we can explore the selling of a strata unit without transfer of proprietorship. but it requires a huge law amendment, which we need to embark a lot of national land code amendments, strata title act, and also strata management act, because it has to introduce a lease annexure and a certificate of lease. But the good thing about private lease scheme is that private lease scheme, they introduce certificate of lease, where the certificate of lease is actually a documentation to show sort of a right of ownership, right on the ownership to the buyers of private lease scheme. Okay, what we found in the comparing to wakaf scheme, Medini scheme, private lease scheme, and the normal regular strata scheme, we found out that it has the same physical features. As you, like I said, we drive around Malaysia, we see there's a stratified building, they have the same physical features. They have the common property, they have the accessory parcel, they have also the units. It looks as if it's either a condominium or a building or a mall. It can be any, but physically it is the same. But the only difference is that in a strata, normal strata scheme, under the Management Strata Title Act and the Strata Management Act, a strata scheme, when before the issuance of strata title, the buyer can form a committee to manage the building. They call it joint management body. But once once the strata is issued, in a normal scheme, a regular scheme, you as a proprietor, you can form a management corporation. But in a strata lease scheme, you are not able to form a management corporation under Strata Title Management Act. Why? Because in strata lease scheme, a lease scheme, you are only a lessee. You don't own the land. You don't own the strata title. You are only leasing out for 99 years. Because the law says a proprietor only able to form a management corporation. So in a strata lease scheme, there is a single proprietorship. Means all strata title belongs to one owner. That's why the buyers are not the owner. Okay, what we found that title registration mechanism. Okay, this is what I explained just now. In a normal scheme, when you are buying a strata unit, you will be eventually you become the owner. Once the strata title is issued to you, the land register will register you as the owner of the strata title. But in a lease scheme, you are not the owner. You will be registered as a lessee onto the strata title. So who will be the owner? Is the original proprietor, the landowner, where the building is being constructed. He or she will be the sole proprietor to the whole strata lease scheme units. Okay. But what we found is that another thing that is identical between these two schemes. Okay. They have the same processes, development processes, where the planning permission, they have to go through the building plan application. They have to go through the certified strata plan application, CIFERS application, the subdivision of building application, and the issuance of strata title, and also the registration of strata title. It is the same. Okay, and finally, what we found that is that why is there is a separation? Why is it that we did not know there is such thing of a separation between a normal strata scheme and a lease scheme? It's because that the lease scheme is only these three schemes, which is the AQoL2022 scheme, Medini scheme, and the wakaf scheme. The AQoL scheme, what we found is that the AQoL2022 scheme is a lease scheme in Penang. The Medini scheme is a scheme in Johor, and the wakaf scheme is the scheme in Penang. But it was differentiated because the intention of having the development. For example, in a normal strata scheme, okay, you are meant to sell out the units to the buyer. When you have a strata title, when you bought the unit, you are given a strata title as you the owner to the units. But in a scheme, for example, strata scheme, AQoL2022 scheme, Medini scheme, and wakaf scheme. Wakaf, we cannot transfer the ownership, but we need to develop a wakaf land to give more revenue to the wakaf, to intend more to develop more economic revenue in return to wakaf land. So without transferring on ownership, a wakaf unit is normally sold through a lease agreement. And for a AQoL2022 scheme in Penang, one of our case studies is that it was actually meant for a development of a township. If you go to Penang, there's a town called Bandar Baru Fahim. The whole town is actually using the concept of strata listing. It belongs to the family of Hokkien, a Chinese family who migrated from China to Malaysia in the early of 19th century. So with this land, they wanted to actually supply. There was a demand for housing in 1980s and 1990s, and there was a demand for township, but they cannot sell out because it's an ancestry land. You cannot transfer this land to anyone. It belongs to your family. So what you do is that you sell through this. Okay? For Medini scheme, which I explained just now about Johor, is because it was actually meant to sell to foreigners. And we do not want any of our land being transferred, its ownership, to other than Malaysians. That's why they had this policy of going with the concept of strata listing in Medini. Okay, so you can see number 6, the differentiate of the proprietorship status, where in a normal scheme, you are the owner of strata title. You are the proprietor to the unit that you bought in a strata unit. But for a strata list scheme, you are only possessing for 99 years lease. You only possess the rights of having to live, having to use, having to have any other rights in the unit. But once the 99 years ended, you need to return the unit and the strata title to the original proprietor. Okay, finally, this is what I can conclude. And in this study, we found that, okay, there is no significant outlining or no significant data saying that there is a different type of strata buildings. No one knows about that. But the only differences between just now I explained about, example, Medini in Johor, Wakaf in Penang, Kukongsi land in Penang, and because it was actually identified by these 3 people. 1, the lawmaker, the law policy, which is in Putrajaya. 2 is the land registrar, the one who actually registered the title. And 3 is the land proprietor themselves, which are the owner of, for example, the owner of Medini, the owner of Wakaf land, and the owner of Kukosi land. These 3 people are the one who actually identified itself there is a different strata scheme, because to make easy for them to govern or to control the building than other normal strata building. But what we found is that either you are a normal strata scheme or you are a lease scheme, or these two type of schemes are governed by our existing law, which is National Land Code, Strata Title Act, and Strata Management Act. Okay, this is what we found. Before, I can't because it's actually blocked. Can I close this? Hi. Okay. What I'm trying to show
you are taking a long time.
Okay,
Can you conclude, please?
This is conclusion. Sorry. Before the study, it was assumed by all strata development we only have 3 types: residential, commercial, and mixed development. But once we completed the study, we found that it's actually expanded. There is no such thing of residential, commercial, and mixed development. There is residential, either a strata scheme, a normal scheme, or a strata scheme, and also for commercial and development too. But under this strata scheme and strata scheme, there's another identification: the Medini scheme, the Wakaf scheme, the Kukongsi scheme, the private scheme. So this differentiation, although they use the same law, but they are governed and administered within the uniqueness or the intended of why it is developed. These are the difference. The intention of developing this land has made it unique to its development. And for that, I summarize this to put the differences between the schemes in terms of regulation, in terms of research, which I already explained just now in our presentation earlier. So there is a new knowledge found, which means that there is not one strata type, there is a several type of strata scheme development. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Noor, for that very
Yeah, thank you.
comprehensive introduction to the strata schemes. as you presented. We took a long time, so we are having very limited time for questions. But still, I would like to open it for discussion. But before we do that, I want to raise a question. Conventionally, we used to know that buildings are stratified from where the word strata it seems to be coming from in terms of residential, commercial, and mixed development, or whatever it is, as you have presented already here. And I haven't been aware of this idea of stratification based on ancestral land and banning foreigners buying land and so on and so forth. It seems to me that this is a very unique stratification system present in Malaysia and not necessarily in other countries, because I cannot think of this similar scheme being present in Australia or in Bahrain or in Colombo, where I have been. And is that the situation? This is a uniquely Malaysian system, is it?
Yes, exactly, sir.
Yeah, because your references are also very Malaysian. There are no other references to other countries. So it's a very unique traditional, convention, culturally fabricated system. It seems to maintain the ownership of land. But it's a very interesting idea, because when it comes to urban development and urban design, we assume that buildings could be constructed, built, and used as we wish. But it seems like there are underlying forces and processes that seems to control whether the buildings can be developed in the way that anybody wants to, or can be used the way anybody wants to. It's being controlled. Well, that's very good. That's a good. Yeah, it's a very good study, and it unravels the unique different systems of building stratifications present in Malaysia. And I think it's very good to know how this happens and what implication they have for the development of the built environment from where you come from. You are really an expert on this stratification aspect.
Thank you so much.
Now, I would like to open this for discussion. If there is anyone in the audience who has a question, could you please raise now? We have limited time, but we would spend 2 minutes. If anyone in the audience has a question.
Come on, sir. There's a question, sir. There's one question.
There's a question? Yes, please.
One question.
Yes, please. Please ask the question.
Cannot hear.
Okay, I think based on the items that you mentioned just now, sorry, I was a late comer just now, but I would like to ask you about the land ownership. Is it any stated in the grant, I mean, the land ownership evidence saying that the typology of development that you plan to do in terms of ownership? Because normally when we have, we check the land grant title, okay, there's a statement there saying is it HT, whatever numbers and all that. So is there any, you mentioned just now, so is there any specific title that lead to the development that you mentioned?
Thank you. Type of title, is it?
Yes.
Because we
Typology of title,
we have
land title.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, we have Peran Mungkin, Peran Negeri. Is it like that?
Yes,
Pajatan
yes.
Negeri, Pajatan Mungkin.
Yes, yes.
First grade in Penang,
First grade in Penang and
Malacca. Am I focusing on what type of land title?
Yes.
Okay. To
Thank you
explain,
for your clarification.
is it that question?
Yes.
Okay. To tell you the truth, for the scheme that I explained just now, the Medini, Wakaf, and two, they don't have actually a specific. The development is not based on what type of land. Is it a lease land, a leasehold government land, or anything? But it was actually based. We studied every strata listing that is found in Malaysia, and we found out that for Hukonsi scheme, they use a first grade land, first grade title, because Penang is well known for a first grade title. But for Wakaf land, they use they also have some first grade and some also state leasehold land. There's only one title statehold land. So actually, what I'm trying to say is that, and in Medini, is a freehold land, geran. They call it a
perpetuity land. There is no lease by the government given to the land in Medini. But what I'm trying to say is not the type of
land that is actually influencing the development. The development is actually influenced by the intention of why the development is needed. So and why why proprietorship is not being transferred to the buyers. It's two reasons. And for that, that is how the development of Wakaf came into picture, the development of Medini came into picture, the development of Pukongsi in Bandar Baru Falim came into pictures. Am I answering your question? Question, madam? Yeah.
That was a good answer. Yes.
There's another
Thank you
question.
very much. Thank you very much. I'm sorry we cannot continue to discuss, although there are a lot of questions that could come. We are limited by time. I need to control time. So thank you very much, Noor. And I would like to move on to the second
Thank
presentation.
you. My number is there. You can contact us.
Yes, you can discuss
Thank you, sir.
during lunch, dinner, outside in the corridor. That's why I put it on. Thank you very much, Noor, for that wonderful presentation. Let's move on to the second presentation this afternoon. That is a title, The Implication of Personalized Advertising on Personal Data, a legal analysis of the EU General Data Protection Regulation. It is presented by Dr. Noor Ashikin Bazaruddin and Dr. Ridwan Aditunji Raji. Over to you, please.
Correct. Okay.
Please try and keep your time and limited according to the rules and regulations of the conference.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So just to check, is my audio clear? Is my audio clear?
Yeah, your sound is very clear. Please speak a little louder.
So, okay. I should share, right? Share the screen. Okay. So, for this session, okay, before that, a very good afternoon to all the participants and also Prof. Ranjit, good morning to you. So here, my topic of presentation is on the implication. Hold on, I cannot see this thing. Hold on. Okay, so my topics of presentation is on the implication of personalized advertising on personal data, a legal analysis of the European Union General Data Protection Regulation. So I am the first author, Dr. Ashikin from UiTM Penang branch, and also with my co-author, Dr. Ridwan Aditunji Raji from Zayed University, Abu Dhabi, UAE. And then we can move to the first slides for the introduction. Just okay, one question to ponder. Have you ever received this is to all the participants, okay? So have you ever received a frightening advertisement about a product at the moment you are thinking of buying it? Okay, so this is actually, if you can see memes here, okay, this kind of technology or digital technology is called as personalized advertising, okay, where it enables the tracking of users' interests and activities in setting range from digital activities and personal data, family, relationship, financial, location, education, entertainment, relaxation, and platform usage. Okay, so the advertisement that actually shown as you scroll the social media, you can find the advertisement really suit to you. Okay, this is the technology of personalized advertising. And there is nothing new about it, about the personalized advertising, as the personalization from the word personalization. So it is actually the marketers or advertisers, they are targeting the person, okay, what kind of content of the advertisement they want to target. For example, if it is about the content related to toys, of course, the targeted person must be the kids, right? So the personalization is not actually new, but then when we come to think about the advertising in the technological practice, okay, so it has no boundaries as it gathers extensive data from different sources. So that's the new part in the personalized advertising. So basically, personalized advertising is an algorithmic profiling. Okay, it is based on the algorithmic profiling or targeting, where it targets, okay, it tracks what I call this our personal data. Okay, then our personal will be listed, segmented, and used to customize the setting. So all our personal data will be predicted, okay, for the advertisers or for the marketers to target the person to advertise the content related to what suits us. So it can be in terms of contextual targeting and also behavioral targeting. So contextual targeting, normally they will see our like on social media. Okay, they will see how we search, what we search on the Google search engine. And then for the behavioral targeting, normally they will refer to what we have purchased previously, okay, in shop or in Lazada, okay, or in other types of online shopping platform. So normally how they will gather the information, firstly, the first method normally is through our what we call this, filing up of the form on the online form. We are filling up of the online form. We mention our name and also our what we call this, phone number, our address, email address. So it is actually being used to target all the person, not only us, but then those related to us from the phone number. The second method is through the installing the cookies in website. So if you notice, of course, everyone must have noticed this, and then we have the cookies selection, whether to accept it or not. It's a kind of algorithmic profiling. And then the third one, the advanced type, is through the data analytic, or we call it as machine learning, where they will infer customers' characteristic. Okay, they will infer the customer's characteristic in a way they don't get the direct information, but then that information leads to that person. Okay, leads to that natural
Please
person.
move. You are still in introduction. Please move quickly.
Okay, so in algorithmic, okay, actually when they target, of course, for us it could be a very benefit. It could benefit us at is it give you the right content of what you need. But then the issue here is you will pass your information, or you will pass your personal data unknowingly. Okay, so as you scroll, as you key in your information, it is already tracked. So there is the issue here is of course, if we in physical life, we don't want it to be, we don't want our behavior, our routines to be tracked, okay, as it invades the human informational privacy. And of course, nobody will consent to the constant surveillance. And a reasonable person, they would expect that their activity, whether offline or online, to be private, right? So the issues here is whether the algorithmic advertising may lead to personal data manipulation and misleading. Okay, whether personal data profiling in personalized advertising has a high impact on individual privacy. And the last one question is how the EU GDPR provides protection for personalized advertising data subject regarding privacy and personal data protection. Okay, so the methods I use in this study is a doctrinal legal method, whereby the authoritative legal material, including statutory provisions, cases, legal rules, and principle of international instrument, is being analyzed, okay, and described, detailed, and analyzed to address the issues. So we come to the part of legal analysis. Okay, so the first notion or the first idea of having the law related to privacy is from the reasonable expectation of privacy test. Okay, so the reasonable expectation of privacy test is actually it's not directly, but we can see that in Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights. Okay, so under the European Convention of Human Rights, it is the fundamental law that highlights the protection rights of individual private life, family life, home, and also correspondence. So based from this provision, okay, we can understand that the reasonable expectation of privacy is actually benchmarked under Article 8, where everyone can expect their private life to be or to remain private. Okay. However, there is debate or issues. Okay, there was issues and debate about it. Okay, and in some cases, okay, cases from the court, so they said they negates the idea of having the absolute privacy because, sorry. So because the privacy, the definition of privacy is actually depends on the location, nature of the objects, and nature of the data itself. So when we refer to the location, okay, so for example, we are outside the home and then we are at the mall, okay, shopping mall, we are at the pavement where there is camera surveillance, so we cannot expect our privacy to be protected. So that depends on the location. So in the case of PG and JH and the United Kingdom, this is actually the case whereby they argued about the privacy where their phone communication was intercepted. Okay, but then they were discussing about having a armed robbery. So when the communication was intercepted. So that is when they argued related to the privacy. Okay, so whether person private life is concerned by measures affected outside a person's home or private premises, since there are occasions when people knowingly or intentionally involve themselves in activities which are recorded and reported in a public manner, a person's reasonable expectation of privacy may be significant, although not necessarily conclusive factor. So in other words, when we relate back to this study relating to the what call this personalized advertising, our data, our personal data, okay, which consists of or which includes our behavior, our routine, okay, our preference is actually gathered online. So in other words, you cannot expect the privacy to be online. Okay, so it sounds unfair. So, but then here, okay, the idea of privacy shouldn't be confined only to the absence of information about oneself in the mind of others. Okay, so the definition of the scope of privacy should be broadened, as it should be the control over information about a person. Okay, so in other words, it's not about your information is not in the minds of others, but then how you control your information, how the law should control the information, okay, from reaching others. So that is when the idea of having this general, we'll call this European Union General Data Protection, where it provides protection related to the privacy, where the data controller and also data processor, which is normally the Google, okay, Google websites, any application, Apple application, Samsung application, okay, the social media, including Facebook, Instagram. So they are all considered as data processor and data controller. So there is no how they cannot follow this GDPR, okay, as they are the one that process all these personal data. So under the definition, the personal data is, we refer to the identified, okay, identified means to say, you mention your name or you fill up a form, mentioning your name, everything, so it can be identified to you. Okay, it can be identified to that person. So for the identifiable natural person, so in other words, we refer to the information, okay, any information that can lead to that person. Okay, though information is not in a big data, Okay, so when we gather or we segmented that, we do the profiling, so it can lead to the other person. It is also considered as personal data. So under the data profiling, okay, data profiling, so this is to determine whether data processor and data controller, they have to abide with the GDPR or not. So since they are the one that doing the data profiling, or we call it as automated processing, so they should abide by the GDPR. Okay, so algorithmic advertising is considered as profiling, okay, as it enables the findings of correlations and to create links to individuals' personality, behavior, interests, and habits to be determined, analyzed, and predicted. Okay, so in other words, since we can identify this data processor and data controller, okay, such as Google just now, is considered as is fall under the definition of data profiling method or process handled by them, so they should follow the directive or the GDPR. Okay, so another few principle, okay, related to it when processing the personal data, okay, they should ensure, okay, under Article 5 or 1A of GDPR, okay, it requires for data processor and data controller to do the profiling. Okay, the profiling must be lawful, fair, transparent, to ensure the data quality. So how to ensure the lawfulness? Okay, lawfulness normally it is based on the issue of consent. Okay, whether the person, the data subject are consented to it. Okay, whether the data subject consented to the information that is gathered by the data controller. Okay, so the consent here we can cross check like this. Okay, lawful. So the lawful consent, the lawfulness is based on the consent. So consent is valid in freely given, specific, informed, and ambiguous. Okay, so in other words, in order for data to be consented, it must be freely given. Okay, so when it must be freely given, meaning to say the data subject, which is us or the consumer, must know how the process should be done. Okay, sorry. So they should know how it is being done, how it is being collected, and what the data will be used for. Okay, and when you click allow cookies, for example, you should read the terms and condition or the agreement. So that agreement actually, when you click allow cookies, so you are consented to it, provided that they have provided that you have read the data, or that's what I call this should be the concern, because regardless of you reading it or not, since they have what I call this, they have insert together with the agreement. So once you allow it, so meaning to say they get your consent lawfully. Okay, so the next one is on the issue of fair and transparent. So issue of fairness and transparent is actually a questionable, because we don't know how the machine, okay, how the system process our information. Okay, so how to ensure the fairness and transparency is actually by the connotation just now. Okay, connotation and provisions, informing data subject, which is us, okay, as the users or online users, of the needs to collect personal data, how it is collected, and how it should be used. Okay, so that's how to ensure the fairness and transparency in collecting personal data. Okay, so the next one is on the special categories of data. Okay, so special categories of data is actually under Article 9 here, come back under Article 9. So when the data controller or data processor, they want to process information related to the racial, ethnic origin, politics, opinions, religious or philosophical belief or trade union membership, processing genetic data, biometric or sexual orientation, this is the sensitive case, okay, whereby the informed consent really need to be done. Okay, and the second one is, even though the data is not on the special categories of data, although the data is not directly, or the data processor may not get it directly. Okay, for example, the status of health status of a person, but then if they can infer from the, for example, from buying or purchasing of food shopping record, right? For example, for high blood pressure, so the customer, they keep regularly buying that online, so it can infer that the person is having what I call this high blood pressure, or someone buying medicine to abort pregnancy, so it will refer to what calls the health status of a person. So in that situation, okay, in that situation, the consent must, in order for them to get your information, okay, the consent should be informed, okay, should be informed. So you have to get that, you have to inform the customer for their data to be collected, for them to consent to it. Okay, so the last part will be the conclusion. Okay, so profiling people's data for tracking and targeting advertising must observe certain criteria, mainly on the issue of consent and minimization of data. Okay, so in terms of minimization, okay, there was a case whereby the what we call this, the person requested for Google to delete their data. So it's still issue of consent and minimization is still arguable, and it's not easy actually to be conducted, right, to realize. But then if you can see now, regularly the websites and also Google especially, okay, they are trying to comply with the GDPR. So controllers should deliver clear and concise information. Okay, so there is agreement whether to accept cookies or not. So all the terms and agreements shouldn't be in jargon words, okay, and shouldn't be in very technical legal words, and it should be clear and concise, so that the data subject will understand, okay, what's the purpose of this data collection. And lastly, okay, since, as I said, the process in the system, the process to collect personal data of data subject or the customer, consumer, is actually invisible. Okay, we cannot predict or cannot see it. So the algorithm system, okay, must be based on security by design, since it is out of our control. So the system itself must be developed based on security by design, okay, whereby all the development is actually performing as intended, and it complied with the agreed standard under the GDPR. Okay, so that's it for my presentation. If you have any question and answer, we can move to question and answer session.
Thank you, Noor, for that very elaborate, comprehensive description about the personal profiling and publication of personal material according to EU regulations. And I wasn't sure why exactly you were looking at the EU situation while you are in Malaysia, whether this has anything to do with Malaysia. Now, we have taken quite a long time, so the time is limited for us to raise questions and discuss. But I have a question before I open the presentation for discourse.
Okay.
Actually, it's a question as well as an observation. You started with 3 interesting questions, and your title says implications of personalized advertising on personal data. And the questions are whether the personal data profiling in personalized advertising has an impact on individual privacy. However, I do not see either in your methods or in your conclusions that you are really be looking at implications of data profiling in personal advertising, because what you're doing in the methods is describing what the existing laws are, and in your conclusions you are simply saying controllers should deliver a clear and concise. It doesn't seem that you are actually looking at the implications of this profiling on the advertising as such. So what do you say to that?
I don't know in other types of study, Prof, but then what we call this in privacy, when we talk about the privacy, so we will not detect the impact unless our data captured, okay, that data captured, but then it can cause us data thief, for example. So someone steal our money, okay, someone steal
Sure, we agree
right?
with that. We agree with that. This continuously happens. Personal data is being stolen, and the legal frameworks are there to try and control it. But your study actually is supposed to be looking at implications of these personalized advertising on personal. What happens with this advertising? What happens to your personal data? That's what you're looking at, isn't it? But in that sense, your conclusions must say, well, our personal data will be all over the world, and you are not a private person anymore, but public. You redefine privacy also. What happens to us? What happens to our privacy? This is what you should be concluding with, isn't it? You should tell us what happens to your privacy if you advertise your personal data through Facebook and Instagram and whatever, you know, those social media and so on. This is what I've understood from your title and what you were raising as questions. But I'm saying I do not see that you're actually looking at that implication part of it, either through your method or in your conclusions. Okay, so maybe you should be re-examining what you're doing. You're at an early stage of your research. Now, let me open this for further discussion. Any questions to be raised from the audience? Is there anyone in the audience who wants to raise a question? Any questions in the audience? Doesn't look like anyone is going to raise any questions, but yeah, in this case, we will conclude because we are running out of time. Yeah, thank you very much for that very descriptive introduction to the EU regulatory framework in the privacy law. So this is very useful to understand those frameworks for sure. But I think you should focus on what you are really claiming in your study, which is to try and find the implications of that on your personal data. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Yes. Now we will move to the third presenter in your session, which is made by Muhammad Amri Abdul Hafiz, Zaiti Zuriani, Mohammed Sakwan, Anida Mahmood, and H. Shafriadi. They are going to talk to us about deferred prosecution agreement as a tool to deter environmental crimes by corporations in Malaysia. Seems like there are a lot of environmental crimes being committed in Malaysia, and we are going to listening to how they can be dealt with and deterred by means of what they call deferred prosecution agreement, from what I understood your presentation. Over to you. Thank you very much. You are ready already. Your presentation is on. And if we can hear from you, yes, let's move on. Please try and keep 15 minutes as the regulation says for the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Assalamualaikum, Mr. Chairperson, Prof. Dr. Ranjit, and everyone present in the room. My name is Amri. I am...
Speak a little louder, closer to the mic.
All right. My name is Amri. I will be presenting on behalf of my team of co-authors, Dr. Zaiti Zuriani, Dr. Anida Mahmood, and Dr. Shafriadi, on the results of our study titled Deferred Prosecution Agreement, or DPA, as a tool to deter environmental crime by corporations in Malaysia. This study is triggered by the staggering numbers of corporate environmental crime. It was reported by the Ministry of Environment and Waters that in 2021 alone, there were 60 reports of environmental crime cases to the ministry. Now, 60 might be minimal to some of us, but the impact of environmental crime to the society, to the individuals, and to the geography of a country is magnanimous. So it warrants a solution. Now, we have at least 37 laws governing environmental protection in Malaysia. but there are issues that we have discovered throughout this study that demands a reform of the laws. And we have observed the trend in other countries which have started to adopt a mechanism called Deferred Prosecution Agreement, or DPA, to deter crime in other areas. So we hope to explore DPA as a tool to deter environmental crime in Malaysia that is committed by corporations. So the problem of this study are three. Number one, the existing legal framework concerning environmental protection is lengthy. Your court trials are lengthy. Number two, the punishment imposed by existing laws, existing acts and laws are minimal. And sometimes the outcome of the prosecution of the court cases are uncertain and can be discriminative towards the victims of corporate crime. So what we are saying here is that DPA, or Deferred Prosecution Agreement, is a great tool so that corporations who rake in profit of billions and millions or millions every year do not simply settle fines and repeat the crime again. So that will be the problem statement of the study. The objectives of the study are two. Number one, we are going to determine the issues in the existing legal framework by assessing selected corporate environmental cases. And through those cases, we'll be exploring whether DPA is suitable as an alternative tool to deter corporate environmental crime. This would be the, well, not all, but some of the literature reviews that we have discovered in the study. Well, according to Mustafa and Muhammad, environmental crime is simply any breach, violation, infringement of national or international laws that exist to ensure the conservation and preservation of the world's environment. And prosecution of corporate crime, if it is committed by corporations, yeah? So how the laws will treat it is just as normal as criminal cases. That means they will have to go through investigations, charge, arrest, litigation, and then you have a decision, if not appeal, and then the final judgment. So that is the existing legal framework concerning environmental in Malaysia. And according to WoS 2018, however, criminal law is ineffective in regulating corporate behavior. And that is why WoS, again, supported by AMER in 2015, I guess, an agreement, they define DPA as an agreement between a prosecutor and a potentially prosecuted corporation to deter their punishment until certain conditions are fulfilled. All right? And according to Rory, supported by Alex and Cohen in 2015, DPA is successful in acting as a deterrent because prosecutors are allowed to achieve remedies beyond what would be obtained at a corporate trial. So I'm just laying out to you the beauty of deferred prosecution agreement as it is, and by reference to the implementation of it in other countries. All right. The methodology of this research, we started by using qualitative method and by employing doctrinal legal research. And this is important to assess the environmental crime cases in Malaysia, as well as to analyze and explore whether DPA would be a great tool to deter environmental crime in Malaysia. And then we employed historical and exploratory approaches. That is important because we have to benefit from the fundamental characteristics, from the fundamental implementation of DPA in some other country. All right? And then we conducted literature review, data collection, and content analysis, and this is to achieve both research objectives. Well, the research are library-based and also through online searches. Okay? So these would be the methodology used for this research. Okay, tables can be very tiring to look at, all right, I know. Just take a look at the table first. These are the list of corporations that we found in the website of Ministry of Environment and Waters. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the other slide, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are a total of 8 corporations. These are not arranged in order, yeah, but just to avoid, yeah. What is that? It's okay, I don't need that. Oh, thank you. Okay. All right, so, well, I guess I can highlight to you column number 4, right? Column number 4 and number 5. You see here, well, the maximum amount of length from the date of offense until the date of judgment, meaning the period a case spends in court is 5 years, 3 years, 4 years. So I've taken the duty to summarize it up for you so that you can understand better. Say, for example, companies like Freestyle Holidays, Sdn Bhd, and LG Recycle, Sdn Bhd, they spend more than 5 years in court and then punished with extremely minimal fines as opposed to the maximum penalty prescribed under the law. And then we take the case of Kota Kemayan Sdn Bhd, SP Mega Sdn Bhd, Malaysian Resources Corporation Sdn Bhd. These cases took more than 4 years in court. It's such a long time in court, right? And then they are fined for less than half of the amounts of the maximum penalty imposed by the Act. And we take a look at the case of Sri Urulangat Palm Oil, this case, and also DSH Plantation. These cases either spent exactly 2 years or more than 2 years in court, and the highlight of the table is actually this case, PTech Resources Sdn Bhd. This is the company that polluted that river in Johor. If you recall this case, it's Sungai Kim Kim, right? It was polluted in Johor. Well, the trial is still ongoing since 2019. The actual damages reported by the newspaper is 10 million ringgit according to the ministry as well. And the potential combined punishment in the Act can only reach 600,000 ringgit. So you can see here, from 10 million of the amount of actual damages inflicted by the corporations, they would only potentially have to pay 600,000 ringgit. So that begs the question, right? What happens to the remaining 9.4 million ringgit? How do we recover this? And also, it also contributes to repetition of crime in 2021. So it was polluted again in 2021. So what we are proposing is that an alternative tool to support, say for example, these are governed under Environmental Quality Act, right? So an alternative tool to support the existing Act to help regulate corporate behavior so that the environment is protected and less impact is given to the society, to the country, to the economy, to the geography of the country. All right, so I think the highlight of this study is really the beauty of deferred prosecution agreement. Okay, so with that, this will be the conclusion of my presentation today. And I believe that the rise of corporate environmental crime in Malaysia is contributed partly by the weakness and the limitations in the existing legal framework. And the DPA regime has its own characteristics, has its own features that can overcome the limitation of these acts. And this study recommends that the legal framework be reformed through the employment of a more effective tool, such as deferred prosecution agreement. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very brief, timely, one-time presentation about the management of environmental crime in Malaysia. It's a very interesting presentation, and it's a very timely presentation also to look at the issue of environmental crime staggeringly going up, as it says. Now, I would like to open this for discussion in the audience, but before we do that, I would like to raise a small question, which is, as you have already reported in the findings, it seems there are two things. One is deferred, what do we call it? Deferred prosecution arrangement, which seems to give opportunities for the prosecuted parties to take time to act and bring some remedial action, which is helpful in a way, as you are rightly saying, that is more likely to generate better outcomes than any trial would yield. But at the same time, you also say and show that when it comes to actual delivery of punishment, it seems that judges, I don't know why, this is a question, judges seem to be giving less than the maximum punishment all the time. Like you are saying, freestyle holiday punished with extremely minimal fines as opposed to the maximum penalty, 5 years in court, and Kota Kemaya has 4 years in court, fine for less than half the amount. I mean, apart from having a tight legal framework, isn't part of the question, part of the problem really, the fact that the punishments and the existing provisions of the law are not fully implemented by the judges in the proceedings? Isn't there a problem there as well?
Thank you for the concern, Prof. I think what we can control is how we deal with the law, and what we cannot control is how the judges would interpret the law eventually. Because when the statute says that the maximum punishment is 10,000 ringgit, judges cannot go over and beyond what is stipulated in that, so they have to follow that. But in instances where damages are magnanimous, even more than the maximum penalty prescribed by the law, this is why we are proposing DPA, just to support the law. I hope that answers your...
DPA doesn't exist, right? DPA doesn't exist right now, is it?
It has been implemented, and it has been considered for implementation in countries like, well, Prof, for your information, DPA originated in the US in 1992, and then countries like the UK adopted in 2013. So it is not a new regime.
But how can DPA be more effective than actual legal frameworks? I mean, my point is this: you can tighten the legal framework more and more and more, and impose heavier fines according to the law. According to the law, yes. But when it comes to implementation, if the implementing agencies, police and judges and whoever, do not implement it, however much tight your legal frameworks are, it's meaningless, isn't it? This is the reality of all the crimes, not only just environmental crimes, really speaking. I mean, there are a lot of crimes that are happening. Part of the problem is the police don't take action according to the existing. We can tighten legal framework, but they are just in books, unless they are implemented. This is the point I'm making.
Thank you, Prof, for the points that you made. I totally get you. But I think what I would like, the team would like to promote here is that the feature of DPA that through the conditions in the agreement, companies can self-regulate. They can agree to pay fines that are compensative, meaning kalau damages 10 million, they have to pay close or full amount of 10 million ringgit. So that will be the conditions imposed in the DPA.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much. There are a lot of questions that I can raise, but I would like to open it for the discussion among the audience. It's a very interesting issue. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to raise a question, please? Please raise it now. Doesn't look like we are hearing anything. As usual, I'm sure the issue is very complex, and you have done a great job of proposing this DPA, which is, I hope, a better mechanism than the laws themselves. I believe DPA will become very effective if there is a what shall I call it? Some kind of reward for following the DPA for the concerned parties. If there is why would they follow DPA if they are given the opportunity to differ? Why would they? What is the report they get? This is the question.
Sorry, I think I can answer that for a bit. Okay, corporations are able to save costs if they avoid court cases. Number one. Number two, they can avoid the ignominy or shame of prosecution. You don't have to have the directors at the front page of the newspaper, so they can have that as a benefit of DPA. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof.
Sure. So there are benefits. There are benefits which are likely to work. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
Presentation. We are limited by time, so and there are no questions from the audience. Also, we will move on to the next presentation. The next presentation is by Nurulanis Ahmed, Mohammed Kushairi Rashid, Noor Naziha Shuweni, and Andrea Blake. They are going to talk to us about a scoping review issue in agriculture land use. Like I keep saying, please keep to the time schedule so that we can conclude it at least without getting too much delay. Thank you very much for the next presenter.
Okay, allow me to share the presentation slide. Thank you to the chairperson, Prof. Dr. Ranjit. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day to everyone. My name is Nurul Anis Ahmad Elais Mohammed from College of Built Environment, Universiti Teknologi MARA, Perak Branch Campus. And actually, I'm on behalf of my friends, Dr. Kushairi, Dr. Noor Naziha, and also Dr. Andrea Blake, okay, to present on the topic a scoping review issue in agriculture land use. All right. Currently, and nowadays, we can see that what we can see right now is about the agriculture land use has turned into a very challenging situation, right? Why this happened is basically because of we are facing with the world population growth. For example, in the year 1950 until 2005, so most of the countries such as Africans recorded population growth at 3.9%. Even Asian countries also recorded population growth at 2.9%. Latin America is about 4%. Europe and North America 1.2% and 1.9% respectively. However, this figure also projected to be triple in the year 2000 until 2030. Including their urban population predicted to be double, and their figure in terms of built-up development also projected to be triple figure. So instead of that, next, in terms of environmental changes, for example, such as a climate change, what we are facing now, we are facing with the climate change. And because this happens, so of course it occurs with the change of temperature setting, and it would cause the animal and plants trend as well. So according to Dyers et al. 2019 and Montanarella 2018, it was stated that 25% of animal and plant species is threatened, and degradation of 74% of terrestrial surface. Besides that, most of the cities also will experience with the urban expansion process. And because of this urban expansion process also, it would result our agricultural land and natural land loss as well. And reduction in agricultural land use also identified as a primary causes of environmental and sustainability problems. Due to this significant statement, so our research aims is to develop a conceptual framework on the issue of agricultural land. And from this research aim, so we divided into two research objectives to be achieved. Firstly, we want to identify the issue in the agricultural land use. And after that, our research objective 2 is we want to analyze the evidence of agricultural land use issue and how this issue impacts towards socio-economic and environmental aspects. For the literature review, right, to establish the effective or sustainable use of agricultural land is a very crucial. So we are really need to understand about agricultural land use based on the sustainability dimension as well. So in order to produce the sustainable agricultural land use with the highest and best of use, so we need to be properly defined the significance of agricultural land use itself, and we try to cater with the specific issue related, right? For example, in this literature review, so we come out we come out with the issues, we identify the issues, and we come out with the significance of agricultural land use, and take into consideration also the sustainability dimension. For example, for the rising of population issues, the sustainable of agricultural land use could be achieved through protecting the ecosystem functions and biological diversity, and also we need to use the intensive technology of land use. This is based on the Shantake et al. 2012. And in regards of food security issues, so in order to produce a sustainable agricultural land use, so to cater this issue on in regards of food security issues, we need to concern in terms of intensity of land use through improving a technology to protect the soil, water, and natural resources. This is according to LAW 2000. And in terms of declining quality and ecosystem issues, the sustainability of agricultural land use could be measured in terms of the favorability for humans and the environment, and also the effect in terms of nature and the harm to health and the others. This is based on the Kotikova and Babbage 2021. All right, for the methodology, so the scoping review was carried out by using the framework suggested by ASCII and O'Malley 2005. So based on this framework, basically there are consists about 6 stages, including interview with the expert. However, in this study, we are using only 5 stages. We exclude the interview with the expert. So because it's not compulsory to conduct the interview with the expert, so we base on these 5 stages only. So the first stages, we identify the research question. So basically the research question is how the agricultural land use issue affect or impact towards the socio-economic and environmental aspect. And we identify the relevant studies regarding the agricultural land use issues, and we select the studies for review. And after that, we go with the data charting, and also we try to summarize and report the results. Okay, for the findings, based on the scoping review, we are using 2 databases, which is Scopus and also Web of Science. So the total number of articles is 217. And after that, we are using the search string. So we put certain criteria. For example, we are using only article with 5, the very latest recent articles within the 5 years only. And we are using with the English version only, and focus on the agricultural land use articles. So after we go through the article, so we can we determine that only 141 articles, all right? And then after that, after we screen and whatsoever, we can the screening with the certain criteria, we have the figure with 76. And from this figure of 76, we have some of the article also, they have a duplicate versions between Scopus and Web of Science database. So we remove about 22 articles. So it becomes of 54 article is eligible to be used. And from these articles, 54 articles eligible to be used, we still have to go through manually to check whether it's really useful to or related to our study in regards of agricultural land use. And we remove some of the article with the technically articles, and we only use about 6 articles to be analyzed and synthesis for our research study. Okay, from these 6 articles, so we tabulate the authors and we come up the issues. Okay, from these issues, we analyze the issues based on the themes of sustainability dimension, for example, the social aspect, economic aspect, and also environmental aspect. So from here, we try to come out the framework here, and we have to analyze in detail from these issues. So from the literature review that we analyzed, we found that there are 6. We found that there are 6 the issues arising in agricultural land use. For example, land management issues or land management problem, and then environmental risk, land use policy, land use conflicts, the governance issue, as well as the lack of interest among the young farmers. And from this issue, we have to synthesis to be analyzed. Okay, how does or how this issue affected towards the social, economic, and environmental dimension in terms of sustainability dimension. All right, for example, land management problems. We found that most of the land management problems that oftenly occurs in most of the country is in terms of land fragmentation and land grabbing. So for the land fragmentation, what is the land fragmentation? Basically, one plot of the land, they are using with several activity of land use itself on the piece of land. For example, they are using with the agriculture, they are using with the housing activities, they also use for the infrastructure or urban development on a piece of land. And of course, when these activities happen on that piece of land, so they will affect this in terms of the land productivity or efficiency of the land would be affected. And the land became unproductive as well. And the others problems in terms of land management problem, in terms of land grabbing. Land grabbing actually is about large scale land acquisition because of the infrastructure development or urban development as well. So because of this happens, so this would affect our environmental and it's also affect our economic aspect in terms of loss of high natural values of farmland, and resulted with the land is unproductive, and also in terms of social, it make it a reduction of young farmers as well. And also in terms of environmental risk, problem in terms of environmental risk, most of the farmers, they are focusing to make it the land is more productive and to make sure that their agriculture activity is productive as well. So they are using the agrochemicals for their activities of farming and so on. So the excessive use of agrochemical, this would affect the efficiency of land and also affect the in terms of environmental cost to solve this problem as well. And for the issue of land management problem, land use conflicts, land use policy, and infrastructure development, this is because of the highest demand of development, and also we are facing with the highly converted of land use change, okay, and this would affect in terms of crop land abandon and clearing of forest vegetation and soil degradation as well, and change from a large scale to subsistence farming. So of course they will, because of this problem affected for their agricultural activities, so it would affect the farmers loss of interest as well to start their agricultural activities. And for the land use policy, problem of land use policy, land management system and governance, okay, because of the legislation instrument as well, okay, the demand of development is there. So the converted of land use from agriculture to the development to the commercials, so it's quite actively changed on the land use. So, and of course, they have a significant impacts in terms of the economic aspect. So the result of land value higher is quite rising of land pricing, rising of land value, and of course their farmers start to sell the land, and it changed the attitude of farmers as well to sell the land because they want to enjoy the profit, they want to enjoy the higher value of the land as well because of the land use change and the policy involved. And in terms of governance issues, some of the institutions such as we have the urban planner authority, and we also have local planning authority, we have land administrative as well. The institution that mostly they are act in a silos and separately, okay. And when they act separately, and sometimes the allocation of budgeting or incentive also differs, and not actively provide the incentive to the farmers, and it also could affect our agriculture activity or agriculture land use itself. And the land use conflicts, is because of the geopolitical imbalance and owner less of motivation and withdrawal of agriculture land. So withdrawal of agriculture land because of many farmers start to sell the land of agriculture because they feel that the land is converted of development or converted with the commercial, they have a higher land value to sell the land. So they are more preferred to sell or to withdraw the land, okay, to gain the profit from a selling purpose. And so it also make it the owners less motivated to start the agriculture activity because of the land use conflicts. Means that we are convert the land from agriculture to the development. So from these issues from the table, so we come out with the with the framework, and we try to match here. We can see here based on the figure. So land management problems, land use policy, land management system and governance is quite very highlighted issues, okay, that would affect the social aspect, economy and environment. So for the conclusion, it was found that the agricultural land use issue identified namely about land management problem, environmental risk, land use policy, land use conflict, governance, and lack of interest. So this is our agricultural land use for our first objective. And these are bring a significant impacts in social and environmental as well as economic aspect. Of course, the agricultural land use, they are primary costs towards the impacts to the social, economic and environmental aspect, and more comprehensive review are needed and required to extend this research because we are just only focusing on the scoping review for that particular agricultural land use, that how this affect towards the social, economic and environmental, but the comprehensive review are needed for extend this research by take into consideration the multi-dimension data sources for validate the issues. And this research also benefited for the sustainable land use proponent by inform the scarcity of agricultural land use and the possible strategy to apprehend. Okay, I think thank you. That's all for my presentation. So any question to us?
Thank you very much, Nurlani, for bringing attention to the issues of agricultural land. I would like to open this for discussion subsequently, but before we do that, I would like to raise some basic questions. Your title says issues of agricultural land, and it's non-specific in the sense that it doesn't say where exactly the issue exists. And I look at your documentary evidence that you have been looking at global, across the world, really speaking. A range of documents have come from the internet, and it's about all the countries. And you start by saying world population is increasing and the agricultural land issues are rising as a result of world. So it's a global thing. I'm a bit skeptical about the relevance and usefulness of what you're doing, because now in your presentation, your last 3 slides actually communicate exactly the same idea. In the final conclusions, you are mentioning agricultural land use issues, identified land management, environmental risk, land use policy, land use conflict, governance. Those items are there in the slide before. And the same ideas are there in the slide before as well. So basically, we were saying around the world, these issues exist. But while I agree partly with the fact that yes, all these issues exist in land, agricultural land around the world, it's less useful because agriculture is a broad concept. It can involve paddy farming, rubber plantation, coconut plant, name it, all kinds of things. And then on top of that, you are looking at global, around the world agricultural land. Really speaking, one cannot do anything from the findings of your study because they are non-specific. I mean, land issues, agricultural land issues in Malaysia will be very different from agricultural land issues in India or in Sri Lanka or Lebanon or Turkey, name it, you know, they will be different from each other. So what do you do about these things? By simply knowing there are land agricultural issues. Knowing only about the fact that there are issues is of very little usefulness because they are not specific. You know, if you know what are the specific issues of agricultural land in Malaysia, then the Malaysian government can take actions, right? If you know what are the specific agricultural land issues in India, they can take action. They will be very different. They cannot be exactly the same. I'm sure I can give you a guarantee. These are place-specific issues. You know, there may be common issues coming from climate change or politics, or even then, even if you take climate change, even if you take politics, even if you take culture, no matter what impacts the agricultural land use issues, they will be very specific to communities, the locations, context, and so on. So this broad brush of saying there are land management problems, environmental risks, land use policy issues, land use conflict issues, governance issues, isn't very helpful. It's too much generalized, too much global, and non-specific to even agriculture. If I were to say, well, agricultural land issue policies in paddy farming, they will be very different from rubber plantation. They will be very different from cultivating corns in South America, isn't it? So unless we know what exactly are those issues, I'm not sure if this thing that you're finding out as a list of issues is very useful. Although you say yes, but more specific reviews are needed. I mean, that's a very generous statement also. Yes, for every issue we can say that. For almost anything that we do in research, we can always say that, well, more studies are needed. We don't know enough about everything. So I want to draw your attention to that. You have anything to say about it in response to what I said?
I agree with you that that you suggested to more specific in regards of issue on agricultural land use for that particular specific area. So I think because of the title is a scoping review, is a starting point for the research. So I want to look the first or initially about the general about the issues arise in agricultural land use, and after we identifying this is the list of the issues, and we try to further study on that particular or specific area of studies that you suggested.
Yep, thank you very much. Okay, let me open the floor for discussion. If there is anyone in the audience who wants to raise a question. Anyone in the audience who wants to raise a question? It's a very interesting study, obviously. Agriculture is fundamental for human survival of food safety and so on. I agree with you that there are many issues in agriculture. They need to be addressed sooner rather than later. So anybody in the audience who has any pressing questions? No, doesn't look like anything coming out from the audience. So yeah, thank you very much for introducing and bringing to the notice of the world that there are issues that needs to be dealt with, and more thorough examinations are needed eventually to deal with them. Thank you very much.
Prof, sorry.
Yes.
There is one person.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Prof, and everyone. Sir?
There is one question, it seems.
Oh, I
yes.
see.
Do you have any suggestion or ideas on what more?
I can't hear.
Yes, please, we cannot hear. Hello? Please speak louder.
Sure. Can you listen?
Yes, we can hear a little bit now. Speak a little louder.
Do you have any idea or suggestion what future studies can be done after your study based on STEM on your study?
Is it a question?
Not very clear. The voice is not very clear.
Can you repeat the question louder?
Okay. Do you have any idea or suggestion on what topic can be done based on your study?
Where can the more specific reviews can be done? What are the areas you suggest should be addressed immediately? Many, obviously.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. I think for the next topics or for further our research, it could be in terms of the strategies, focusing on the strategies on how to make it our land productive, focus on the productivity of the land, how to make it our land productive, focusing on the paddy fields, such as paddy field because in Malaysia, specifically on within the state of like northern regions, so there are more focus on the paddy fields because as we are facing now more on the food security problems. Rice, the stock of the paddy field also quite reduced. So we need to take the actions or strategies, to make sure that our land to be productive and to focus on the paddy field farming activities.
Yeah, this is obviously one. There are quite a lot. I think she has already listed 6 particular issues, all of these issues. Land management,
yeah, because there are a lot.
All of those can be actually pursued more rigorously in specific contexts, if I may add.
Even the land fragmentation, so we need to further explore
Policy,
land fragmentation, land
policy,
grabbings. Yes, the
lack of
policy
interest from the
implementations.
farmers, young farmers
Yes,
not
a
too
lot.
interested in,
Motivation
there are a
of
lot.
the farmers
All
as
of
well.
those.
Yeah.
Each of those aspects can be pursued vigorously in specific contexts. Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing to the notice of the world the issues of agricultural land. I hope they will be resolved sooner rather than later. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next presentation. Yeah. Let's move on to the next presentation. We have another presentation from Kim Mi Chong, Geeta Subramaniam, Rashid Ating, Lenis Aislin Sepra, and Se Hong Chan, talking about sustainability of smart cities in Malaysia and the Philippines using ESG model. Over to you.
Very good afternoon to the chair, Prof. Dr. Ramzi, and also the organizing committees, professor, lecturers, and students, and all the participants. So I'm Chong Kim Yi from State University, together with my co-authors, Prof. Gita, Rashid, Lenis, and also Zihong Tan. Right, so we are from different university here. So later, my co-authors from the Philippines, but then she's currently in New Zealand right now. So she will present on the slide. So let's proceed here. So as you can see here, so when you talk about smart city, right? So what would you think about? So Putrajaya, as we are here right now, also one of the smart cities. So in Malaysia, we have several smart cities, and also same goes to the world. So smart city right now, like in Sarawak, we have Kuching, Miri, and also in Sabah, we have Kota Kinabalu. And also here we have Cyberjaya, KL, Selangor, and also Cyberjaya and Penang is actually considered as smart city. So this research is actually my further research on helping the Miri City Council to conduct on the research in terms of whether the local community aware and their perception towards smart city. So when we talk about smart, so definitely it will actually connect to technologies, right? So like Smart Selangor that we're using in the apps. So using the ESG model, so we actually examine the sustainability of the local community living in the smart city in Malaysia and in the Philippines. So we have 2 sets of like results whereby we go and collect the respondent from Malaysia and also in the Philippines. So we are able to distribute 400 questionnaire, and then our findings actually look into for the community awareness, perception, and also their readiness to participate in the smart city initiative to the impact of smart city sustainability. Alright, so smart city is actually widespread and also acceptable terms among the stakeholders right now. Alright, so and also the government is actually looking into this topic as well. Alright, so communities that use information and communication technology to enhance the livability, meaning can be lived, alright, in a better way, and also work abilities and also sustainabilities based on the definition from the International City Management Association (ICMA). So do you know that which is actually the smart city in the world in the top ranking, which is our neighbor country, which is Singapore. So we are actually based on Singapore smart city framework to look into for our research here. So moving forward here, let's invite our co-authors, which is currently in New Zealand right now, Associate Professor Lenny, to present on the coming slide.
Over to you.
Very much, Kimi. Yeah, so I'll be presenting the aims, objectives of the study and our literature review. So this study aims to measure local communities' awareness level and prioritization level towards sustainability of the smart cities. So this study evaluates local communities' perception level towards the sustainability of smart cities and investigates local communities' readiness to participate in the smart cities initiatives. So the smart city initiatives in Malaysia have been included in the 11th Malaysia Plan, or 11MP, the 3rd National Physical Plan, or NPP3, and the National Urbanization Policy 2, or the NUP2. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, we also have the 4th ASEAN Smart Cities Network, or the ASCN annual meeting. The Department of the Interior and Local Government, or the DILG, commits to finishing its 6 smart city projects. So the smart city projects showcase include the command center upgrade and e-government services in the city of Manila, bus rapid transit system and digital traffic system in Cebu City, and converged command and control center and intelligent transportation and traffic systems with security in Davao City. And these initiatives emphasize the role of smart cities in the development in coping with Malaysia's and Philippines' urbanization issues and impact on sustainability. So next slide, please, Kimi. So based on the constructs that we have in our literature review, we have considered 4 independent variables, namely local communities' awareness, smart city prioritization, local communities' perception, and local communities' readiness to participate and relate them to the sustainability of smart cities as our dependent variable. So using the purposive sampling technique, 400 online surveys were distributed in Malaysia and Philippines, with 124 responses in Malaysia and 207 in the Philippines. In the conducted pilot test, the Cronbach alpha value of above 0.7 shows the acceptability of our instrument. The data analysis technique used to capture the vectors of sustainability of smart cities is PLS-SEM. Back to you, Kimi.
Yeah, thank you for the insightful presentation. So now let's move on to the demographic analysis. So as you can see here, out of our respondent here, total respondent will be 331 respondent that's really can be usable for the data. So over here we have like more female respondents, and then averagely the age is actually between 30 years old, and then the occupations actually work within private and also public sectors. So their average income levels actually, we actually collect different based on Malaysia perspective and also from the Philippines as well. So then there are like different percentage, majority of them actually single in their marital status, and also we only collect from the Philippines and also from the Malaysian who are actually staying in smart cities. So among here you can see number 8 here. So it's actually Kuala Lumpur, Cyberjaya, Putrajaya, Selangor, Johor, Penang, Melaka, Sabah, Kuching, and Miri is actually our smart city. And also for the Philippines, it's actually Cebu, Davao, Manila, and some other places. But we will focus on the smart cities response So here we have 4 hypotheses as mentioned by Lennis. So out of the 4 hypotheses here, as you can see here for the p-value and also the t-value, is actually the significant level of confidence level of 99%. So only one is actually the smart city prioritizations actually has been rejected. So here is our result for the using smart PLS for the path analysis for Malaysia also and also for the Philippines. So here is actually 65.4% of the independent variables as planned to the dependent variable, which is 65.4, whereas for the Philippines actually 69.4, which is more or less the same, but Philippines actually slightly higher than Malaysia response. So here, as we can discuss on the result here, so local community perception is actually very important and also their awareness. So what are the, like all these pictures, right, is actually the real pictures that on our project for last year, whereby the digital signage has been actually installed here. But some of the, for our previous study, we learned that the local community, they don't really focus on this and they somehow doesn't notice on this. What is the purpose of it? So we found that both countries, the awareness and also the perceptions of the local community and also the readiness is actually very important. And we found that the local community, which is our hypothesis that has been rejected, they are less worried about the technology aspect, whereby when they look into the smart city, they already expect the technologies, so they didn't, they feel secure and reliable for that particular technology application. So to conclude this research here, so smart city prioritization does not have any effects on the sustainability, all right? And then for this research would be usable for the industrial practitioners and also the policy makers in terms of the local community perception, awareness, and readiness. So we would actually reflect back for the SDG number 9 and 11, which is the sustainabilities for the cities, and also for the SDG 11, which is the sustainable cities and communities, and also SDG number 9, industrial innovation and infrastructure, III, right? So then, so for the developments, for the future development, we will actually plan to go deeper for the research, whereby we'll interview the local community and also maybe the people that actually having the authorities to decide on this. So we will further our research on qualitative instead of like just doing quantitative. So that's all for my presentation, and thank you for all your attention, and thank you for my university and conference organizer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim and Geeta, for that presentation on the sustainability of smart cities. Thank you for keeping relatively to the time frame as well. We are under pressure to keep the time. We are running short. Now, I will open this for discussion with the audience. I'm sure there are questions about sustainability of smart cities, which is a growing trend around the world. However, my question is actually an observation about your study. I see some conflicts in what you're presenting, because in the middle of your presentation, you are having a slide called results of hypothesis testing, table 3. But you never had a hypothesis, if I may say so, because in your aims and objectives, it says study aims to measure local communities' awareness level and priorities and level towards sustainability. There is no hypothesis as such. So this idea of hypothesis testing happening in table 3 is questionable. Also, once when you come to conclusion, if you had a hypothesis to be tested, your conclusion should be whether the hypothesis is validated or not. Whereas your conclusion doesn't do anything about a hypothesis. So there is a kind of contradiction in what you are saying and doing inside your thesis, isn't it?
Yeah, okay.
Although the issue is very relevant.
Yeah, thank you for your comments and also your questions here. Yeah, in terms of your two constructive feedback here, so perhaps I can explain here for the objective itself. We're actually looking into for the 4 hypotheses here. So because like the limitations of the slide and also the limitation of our presentations, so we didn't put in all the specific objective, but a general objective. Yeah, and then for the conclusion itself, our conclusion here is actually for the hypothesis number 2 that has been rejected, which is smart city prioritization. So this one is actually did not significant effect. So means that it plays a very relatively lower percentage compared to the other 3 hypotheses. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. But I think you should re-examine this whole idea of hypothesis.
Okay.
If you're having hypothesis, very clearly define the hypothesis at the beginning, and then say whether the hypothesis is validated or not at the end in conclusion. That's how research should be constructed. All right, let us open this for discussion if anyone has any questions. I'm sure there are a lot of questions. Smart city is a yes, please.
Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, yes, there's one.
I just got one question. As I referred to the model itself, it is very substantial, 0.6 related coefficient determination. Substantial relationship between the model attribute and the dependent and dependent. I'm just asking if, in order to be to get it more significant, if you can, like Prof said just now, if you can get the BLS into predictive level of Q2 in order to know what we call it, pass coefficients, to know the strengths of the model itself.
Yes, we did include the Cronbach alpha and also the items path coefficient in our paper, but we didn't present in the slide.
Okay, then good.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the comment. Yeah, that is important as well. Yeah, thank you for the feedback. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Yes.
Prof, I have a question here. So my question is, your study is related to the readiness of and awareness of the society about the sustainable city or smart city. But then I want to know your opinion regarding the issue of maintenance, because it involves the technological part. And since whether it is really, it can be sustained or not, because there are so many smart city in Malaysia that were left abandoned, especially, for example, in Johor Bahru. So it was abandoned since the issue of maintenance, and what I call this, it doesn't really look like a smart city, though they claim it is a smart city, but the networking, it doesn't even, what we call it, they can't even realize that actually. So what is the significance of asking the readiness of the society in doing this?
Yeah, thank you, Noor Ashikin, for your questions and also feedback. Yes, based on the smart city itself, right? Somehow we don't feel really like smart enough. Even the Wi-Fi is not working, right? So this happened in my hometown as well, in Miri, which is Sarawak. So even we say that this is actually the Wi-Fi zone. So they actually reflect back to the government and saying that there's actually no speed Wi-Fi for that. So then I think the maintenance and also the budget is actually one of the concern here. So, and also for the smart drain. So flooding is actually an issue in Malaysia. So there's like different indicators, and somehow it has been like vandalism happen. So this is one of the concern which is indirectly affect on this sustainability as well. So which should be maybe in the future that we can actually include in our study on in terms of like the vandalism or this thing, and then the maintenance fees, the budget of this thing. It could be a moderator or it can be a mediator in the future research. Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion for this in terms of the sustainable for smart city. Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are running out of time.
Okay,
so
sure.
I will thank you very much for that interesting presentation about smart cities. Let's move on to the next presenter.
Yeah, thank you, Lenny. Thank you for all attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, according to the table that I have, there is another presentation listed, which is by Ms. Nursia Hidam Sukhili, an empirical investigation on integrated WAC governance in Malaysia and WAC institutions. Although the presentation hasn't been shared with me, I'm not sure if this person is presenting or not.
Yes,
You're presenting?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I haven't seen your presentation. So, Nursia, dear. Your title is an empirical investigation on integrated WAF governance in Malaysia and WAF institutions. Please, over to you. Please confine your presentation to 15 minutes according to the law.
And good afternoon to Prof and also all the presenter. My name is Nishada Zulkifli, and today I would like to present or share regarding the study, which is an empirical investigation on integrated wakaf governance in Malaysia wakaf institution. Okay, so for the introduction, to understand the wakaf governance itself, I would like to share that the wakaf management in Malaysia, which is under the federal constitution, it is under jurisdiction of state government, meaning say that all the state have governed their, especially in terms of Islamic affairs. So for Malaysia, the wakaf governance solely managed by the State Islamic Religions Council or SIRC, or in Malay we call as Majlis Agama Islam Negeri. Okay, so meaning say that when the jurisdiction of the Islamic matters or the wakaf itself is under the jurisdiction of the state government, they have their own management or how to manage the wakaf. Okay, so in order to in terms of to control or to make sure the proper governance of wakaf, at the federal government we have the Perbadanan or Jauhar and also the Yayasan Wakaf Malaysia. So this institution or this agency will control or administer the wakaf administration at all states. Okay, then the significance or the importance of this wakaf management, this study is actually, or why we need to study the wakaf governance is actually, as we know, the wakaf itself, it provides a lot of benefits, especially for the economy and also social development of Muslim society, especially in Malaysia. But according to the literature, there are several issues that need to be tackled or the problems that face in terms of wakaf governance. So the first one is in wakaf governance is actually there is a lack of accountability procedure. According to the literature, it stated that lack of accountable procedure, which is referring to the poor management, which the other one is lacking of regulation in terms of accounting, and also lack of awareness. Okay, then the other problems is in terms of inconsistency of the wakaf management, because each SIRC or the Majlis Agama Islam have their own enactment to govern or to regulate the wakaf practices. Because or due to the inconsistency of the management, it leads to the wakaf property is difficult to sustain and also develop. The wakaf is actually need to be sustained and developed for the development or for the benefits of the community. And the other problems is the technical issues of reporting standard, meaning say that in the wakaf institution itself, there is absence of established reporting standard. And also, according to the respondent, based on the previous study, they stated that they designed or self-designed the format for reporting or for the accounting standard. And next, which is the wakaf transaction are recorded manually. So there are the problems in the wakaf institution, especially to govern the wakaf. Okay, so this study is to examine the current practices of integrated wakaf governance. So the aim is to investigate or to determine or to identify the level of wakaf governance that consists of the transparency, accountability, and also fairness. Okay, so for the past literature, in terms of accountability, there are several studies that focus on accountability issues. So, according to Yasmin and Hanifa, which is limited disclosure on resources allocation. So, as we know, the wakaf is the trust from the public, and then wakaf institution fulfill the procedure and requirement of reporting. That this is the importance to support the principle of good governance. And in terms of accountability, it is important for the donor, which is the wakif, need to know how they manage the what we call how they manage the properties. And the other one that which is according to the Islamic principle, it is consistent with the maqasid Sharia, which is this accountability tally or that practice from the Ottoman Empire. And the most important thing is accountability in managing or governing the wakaf, which is for the sustainability of wakaf practices. So how to sustain the wakaf practices? According to the authors, which is the account are properly recorded and also must be audited, which is to accomplish the goal. Okay, in terms of transparency, which is the wakaf institution need to be transparent in govern or manage their properties or wakaf properties. It is because to improve the confidence of interested stakeholder, which is we want to attract the stakeholder to contribute in the wakaf, and also which is to minimize the disinformation. The other one in terms of transparency, which is in terms of reporting. So in terms of reporting, there are several supporting review, which is the performance measurement of the wakaf institution, which is one of the elements in the accountability. And in terms of reporting itself, it is to control the management of wakaf. And then the report provide in terms of recording is important for the disclosure of the financial statement or expenses of the wakaf institution. Okay, so for this study, we use quantitative method. So the first one.
Can you move quickly, please? You're taking a long time. We need to control your time.
Okay, Prof. Okay, so we distributed the questionnaire through online. It involved the wakaf administrator in 11 Majlis Agama Islam Negeri, and then the determinant of integrated wakaf governance, which is transparency, accountability, and fairness, which is measured by using 7-point Likert scale. Okay, so for the reliability analysis, we use the which means that the fairness, accountability, and transparency, the alpha value is range between 0.7 and 0.8, meaning say that the determinants or the internal consistency of the what we call the determinants is acceptable. Okay, and then for the level of determinants of integrated wakaf governance, so based on these three variables or the determinants, we can say that the fairness, according to the mean value, the fairness, accountability, and transparency in the wakaf institution, it is considered as high practices among the wakaf administrator, because the mean value which is greater than 5.0. Okay, so for the discussion in terms of reliability test, which is using Chromebase Alpha, The question asked are reliable and easy to understand for the question for the respondent because the alpha value is greater than 0.7, and the level of wakaf governance practices in terms of the determinants or the for the wakaf governance, which is high level of transparency, accountability, and fairness of wakaf management practices among the administrator in Peninsular Malaysia, and then the administrator agree that reporting is required in the management of wakaf. So based on the study, which is the administrator agree that preparing the relevant document and report, which is for the respected parties, for example the donor, and also they also agree that disclosure of the wakaf information must be available, which is all the information accessible on the website, and then decision made relating to the wakaf practices is fair and not biased. So meaning say that the administrator are free from any influence in making decision and there is no conflict of interest. Okay, so for the conclusion, to conclude, accountability, transparency, or fairness are the determinant that required to determine the wakaf governance in the wakaf institution, because based on the mean value, and one of the what we call the findings of the study, which is the wisdom in the wakaf governance, is also important to be inculcated in the wakaf institution. Meaning say that based on the result, we can see that the wakaf administrator agree that they have the opportunity to what we call to generate new idea in order to manage the wakaf governance. Okay, and then in terms of contribution or significance of the study, the study is provide for the in terms of methodology, which is provide a framework for a better understanding of integrated, which is there is a limited study done in the context of governance or the wakaf governance, and then for the literature, the analysis of the study can provide, especially the preliminary empirical findings on the determinants of integrated wakaf governance. Okay, so Prof, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation on wakaf governance. It's a very interesting study. Because we are now 1 hour behind schedule and we need to finish, I'm afraid we don't have much time for discussions. I will not raise any questions myself. I will open the presentation for discussion in the audience. If there is anyone who has any questions from this presentation, please.
Yes, Prof. Ranjit, I have questions here.
Yes.
Ajah, from your introduction and problem statement, you have so many issues that you have listed in your literature review. If that is so, why is there a need to examine the current practices of wakaf governance? Second, since you are using quantitative, why is your findings showing reliability analysis? We should be focusing straight on the actual findings. And then with known issues as evidence from literature, may we know what is your research limitation? Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Okay, so for the research limitation, which is, the first one is in terms of what we call in terms of the respondent itself, they have a difficulty to, in terms of response rate is lower, and then based on the literature review, for the limitation, we can say we found that it is in terms of there are 3 determinants, which is transparency, accountability, and also fairness. There is for the future study, we need to focus on the wisdom itself, which is based on the previous study, there is very limited, especially in terms of empirical findings, in terms of to prove that in managing the wakaf itself, they are given the wisdom or the flexibility or the what we call to innovate, to be creative to manage the wakaf. So as based on the finding itself, one of the elements of wisdom is important for the administrator to manage the wakaf properly, which is to what we call to develop the wakaf property so that the wakaf can benefit to the society especially. And then next question, Prof. Sorry.
I think there are no other questions. Thank you very much for that wonderful answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for presentation. On to the next presentation today. It's done by Zuriani Ibrahim, Idar Noor, and Suhaila Abdul. This is along with Ahmed Jaski. They're going to talk to us about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the standard of living of the B40 group. Please move to the presentation. I'm going to stop you in 15 minutes. We need to control time because we are 1 hour behind.
Okay, so Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to the chairperson, audience on the floor and audience online. Okay, so today I would like to present our research paper, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the standard of living of B40 group. So me myself, I am Suhaila Abdul Aziz, together with my colleagues, okay, Zuriani, Isa, and Ahmad Zaki, would like to present to you this research. So before we go further, I would like to explain what is actually B40. Just brief. So B40, the word B comes from the alphabet B comes from the word below 40. Okay, so we have B40 and 40, below 40% of the income classification by household, and the top one will be T20. So what are we going to, what we did was we tried to investigate the impact, okay, to those who actually come from these B40 groups. Okay, so this is some of the background. So of course, because of we need to understand that in Klang Valley, the high density of Klang Valley is actually quite high because the population there is around 24.7% of the population in Malaysia. So of course, those who come from the low income group, especially the B40, they have to compete for many things such as food, okay, housing, money, and in many other ways. So according to a research, due to COVID-19, the income of Malaysians actually decreased by 50%. This is actually really affect those who come from lower income family because they need this money to survive, especially in the very big city, which is Klang Valley itself. So what happened? These people come from this B40 who live in Klang Valley, they have to find other means to survive, such as they need to find a part-time job, additional job. For instance, if you look at the logo, they resorted to work as food delivery man, okay, and then e-hailing and work in fast food F&B industry because they need to sustain their life in Klang Valley, okay. So this is our research objectives. So the focus of this study, we focus on important issues involving B40 household in urban and rural area of Klang Valley. So we divide the Klang Valley itself into two parts, which are urban areas and the rural areas. So what are we trying to look at? We look at the impact of COVID-19 on the standard of living, involve the income, expenditure, and of course the savings. So these are the three things that we are trying to look at based on our research. So just some explanation on our literature review. So according to the Department of Statistics Malaysia, DOSM,
they found out that 20% of the from this group M40, the middle 40 household group, they dropped to B40 because of COVID-19. As some of them, they lost jobs, they have many different other reasons that make them drop from M40 to B40. So for example here, this happened due to the loss of job and self-employed due to MCO, Movement Control Order, introduced by the government of Malaysia starting from 18 March 2020. So not only that, this also actually affect the group of B40 due to other reasons such as the increase of price of goods and inflation. So due to this, it actually affects them because it makes them have problem to gain basic needs such as food and other important things they need to sustain their life. So all of us, including me, including you, we actually have debts in our life. So of course, because of the loss of income, because of the loss of job, so they actually have problem in sustaining their life because due to this, the high level of indebtedness among B40 affect their financial situations. So what happened due to this high level of indebtedness, in order to survive, themselves and their family, so they resorted to take personal loans in order to cover their daily expenses. So I would like to introduce our methodology. So of course we are using quantitative research, and the sampling technique that we are using is convenience sampling, in which that we managed to get 650 respondents from the B40 group, came from Klang Valley. So the instrument that we use is questionnaire, and our questionnaire is actually like a scale questionnaire. And of course, we did reliability tests for our instrument, and the Proban alpha of our instrument is 0.823, and for income, for expenditure 0.92, and for saving 0.806, in which that this is actually a good number. According to CHUA 2020, a good Proban alpha value would be from 0.65 to 0.95. Now for this research, we did, of course, we did our data analysis. So we use inferential statistics, which is men, Whitney, you. It sounds like Whitney Houston, but it's not. So what is actually men, Whitney, you? We try to compare the differences between two independent groups. So in this case, we compare those who live in urban Klang Valley and those who live in rural Klang Valley, and we compare that with the dependent variables, in this case our questionnaire items, from these three different topics: income, expenditure, and saving, which is related to our objectives. So of course, because we are trying to do differences, we compare differences. Of course, we have hypotheses. So based on our findings, so if you look at the significant value here, it is more than 0.05. The significant p-value is more than 0.05. So what happened? The findings fail to reject the null hypothesis. So what does it mean? There is no significant difference on issue income during COVID-19 for those who live in urban and rural area in Klang Valley. So this is based on income. Now how about the expenditure? So for expenditure also, we found the same result, in which that the significant value is 0.529, in which that is more than significant value. Therefore again we fail to reject the null hypothesis. Therefore there is no significant difference on the issue of expenditure during COVID-19 between those who live in rural and urban area for this B40 group in Klang Valley. And of course, for the third one, the issue of saving, again, the significant value is more than 0.05. Therefore, we fail to reject the null hypothesis. Then we can say that we can conclude here that there is no significant difference on the issue of income, saving, and expenditure during COVID-19 between B40 who live in urban and rural areas of Klang Valley. There is no significant difference. So I would like to invite my other friend to present the discussion and conclusion.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Suhaila. And the results of the study show that the majority of respondents respond the impact of COVID-19 on their standard living. According to Ross and Mustami, 2020, and Ibrahim et al., 2022, state that the B40 household group received the economy impact of COVID-19. However, some others are still able to survive the impact of COVID-19 because they have sufficient savings and financial planning during the implementation of the Movement Control Order, or MCO. Okay, next. The B40 group is advised to prioritize buying essential goods when spending is a strategic initiative that everyone should practice. Maybe it's not easy, but still have to try. This can help them to increase their saving because the amount spent is more focused on essential expenses only to avoid overspending and waste. Related government agencies must monitor the price of essential goods and products, especially for controlled goods to reduce the impact of inflation. That's our presentation. Thanks for our attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation about the impact of COVID-19. Of course, COVID-19 has impacted everyone, not only B40, and you're looking at B40. So that's good that you found, but it's interesting that you didn't find evidence to substantiate the hypothesis. But I don't know what exactly the hypothesis was. There was no hypothesis at the beginning in your presentation, although at the end it's talked about the hypothesis. Nevertheless, I would like to open the floor for discussion if anyone has any questions. Anyone has a question? Doesn't look like. But I mean, in that case, I'll ask a very simple question. You started by saying COVID-19 affected and significantly decreased the income by 50%. And now, at the end of the day, your research shows there is no significant difference. What does that mean?
Okay, so yes, of course, the COVID-19 affect the income of Malaysians. It makes the income of Malaysians, most of the Malaysians, decrease by 50%. But when it comes to our findings, when there is no significant difference, it's actually there is no significant difference between these two groups, which are those from rural B40 from rural Klang Valley and B40 from urban Klang Valley. So it means that both groups, those from rural and urban area of Klang Valley, they actually face the same struggles and hardship in terms of income, expenditure, and savings due to COVID-19.
Right. Yes. So they are managing. They have found other means of income to substantiate and support them. That's a good point. Thank you very much. I think if there are no questions, we will move on to the next session, next presenter. Is there any question from the audience? Anyone? Yes, please.
One simple and quick question. You mentioned about Klang Valley, right? But you have not actually identified or mentioned about location, because Klang Valley is quite wide to mention. Yeah, the high density, and there are lots of localities, including
kampungs as well as cities like Putrajaya and Kuala Lumpur. So that itself is very much significant in terms of disparity. So why was not that existing in your methodology that state that with how many percent is from so-called these areas? Thanks.
Okay, so actually we did include in our findings in which that the urban area, the respondent would be 441 from urban, and rural areas from 209 respondents. So how do we actually determine urban and rural parts? Okay, so of course the rural part more likely at KL, Putrajaya, PJ, okay, and for rural it's more like KL, Sepang, Kuala Langat, Banting. So this is how we segregate them based on urban and rural part of Klang Valley.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, that was.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to the next presentation today to conclude, although we are quite late now. I'm sorry about the timing. Our final presentation is about Malaysian special education law integrating the medical and social models of disability. Presented by Dr. Noor Izan Rahmas, Muhammad Fikri Othman, Dr. Nora Sleen, Abdul Aziz, and Dr. Susipan Sukhbun Pant. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much to the chairperson, Professor Dr. Ranjit. Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am the last presenter for today's session before we take a break for tea break. Okay, so this is the topic: Malaysian Special Education Law integrating the medical and social models of disability. I am actually representing my student Muhammad Fikri to present this study. Yeah,
please keep with the 15 minutes. Stop you.
Okay, Prof. Okay, so the issue is, I don't want to read the slides. Okay, the issue in this study is that the laws in Malaysia are scattered. Yeah, we have so many laws, we have so many statutes and legislations.
There are also international conventions which we refer to, but we want to propose that all these scattered laws to be one standard law, what we call special education for Malaysians. So we are focusing on children here. Children with disabilities is defined as children with developmental problems such as visual impairment, hearing impairment, autism spectrum conditions, behavioral disorders, and learning difficulties. So because of the problems they face, and of course there are some limitations that they face, there are many issues relating to these children. Alright, so why education is very important? Because with education we can actually make the gap closer, because there's a gap between normal people and of course people with disabilities. Now we are focusing on children. So why education is very important? With education, they can be independent in the future, they can take care of themselves, and we hope that the parents, we don't want the parents to worry too much. Alright, so there is one slide missing here relating to the objective of the study. Actually, the objective is to examine the effectiveness and the sufficiency of the laws that we have in Malaysia, and we would like to propose that we should have a standard law, a complete law, a sufficient law to govern all children with special needs in Malaysia relating to their educational rights. So for research methodology, we are using qualitative research methodology, which is library-based, and we analyze all the statutes and legislations. For example, Malaysian Federal Constitution, the Person with Disabilities Act 2008, Education Act 1996, and all the regulations which are relevant, and of course the journal articles. Alright, so I don't want to read all these laws in Malaysia. I would like to highlight only one or two. We have one very general law here, Federal Constitution, Article 8 and Article 12, actually on equality before the law, right to education. So all people in Malaysia are equal before the law and they have right to education. And I would also like to highlight on Person with Disabilities Act 2008, which is Section 28. Person with disabilities shall not be excluded from the general education system on the basis of disabilities. And of course, we have so many other laws. Alright, so in Malaysia, we have three types of special education system. We have special education school, we have special education integration program, and inclusive education program. Okay, special education school is a school specifically for students with special needs. For example, students with hearing impairment, visually impaired, and learning disabilities. We also have special education integration program. This one in mainstream school, whereby the children with disabilities study in a special class. Yeah, and the third one is inclusive education program, whereby these children with disabilities studies in the same class as normal students, but there are not many of them. Okay, I would like also to highlight on models, because we want to integrate between medical model as well as social model. Okay, what is medical model? Okay, from the term itself, medical. This is actually an oldest model known as psychomedical model. According to this model, these children need treatment. How they should be treated? By way of consuming medicine. Yeah, because according to this model, it is actually these people cannot make decisions under this model because they are regarded as someone who relies on financial support or charity-based program. So this model of disability is widely accepted by many societies, most legislation and policies which are based on this model, but this is actually quite outdated. What we want to highlight here is social model can be also referred. Yeah, so this social model of disability is very good actually. We are looking at the hindrance or challenges of these children to communicate with the society. Yeah. So here the main focus of social model of disability is to examine the barriers, including attitudinal, political, social, and economic barriers which prevent the PWDs from participating in the society. Alright. Okay, so the discussion and finding here is that we want to say that all the law that we have in Malaysia are actually very general and scattered. We have all this law, we have the statutes, we have the federal constitution, we have the regulations. So we are proposing to the government, hopefully we have the new government today, so we are proposing to the new government that we should have a standard law, a complete law to govern the children with special needs, which is relating to their education rights. Alright, so this is our conclusion and recommendations. We want to say that both medical and social models of disability should be considered to provide a better understanding towards people with special needs and people with disabilities in Malaysia. Both models have their strengths and weaknesses. Therefore, the integration of both models of disability will enhance the quality of life, especially their educational rights. So these children with disabilities must not only be cured in order for them to become normal, but the social barriers that restrict their full participation in society must be removed. So it is hoped that the finding of this research will open ways to improve the law which focuses on special education by integrating the scattered law and upholding the integration of both models of disability. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation about the related laws in Malaysia about the education of disabled kids. This is a very important issue. This is a very important issue. Thank you very much. We are running very short of time. So I would like to open the floor for discussion. If there is anyone who has a question to raise from the idea of these laws. Anyone has a question?
No question from the audience here, Prof.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'll just have a very small question. I mean, there are laws related to this idea of facilitating education for the disabled. But is there anything wrong with the laws, or what are you trying to say?
We have a very general law that is in the Federal Constitution. We have one specific law, not law actually, one specific section in our Person with Disabilities Act, but it is regarded as toothless tiger because there is no law on enforcement, there is no provisions on enforcement. So that's why we need a law which is complete. It involves everything, the curriculum, the process, the standard, the teachers, the training, everything should be under the same statute. That is our proposal, Prof.
Okay, so you're saying current laws are insufficient and we need to improve the laws.
Yeah.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. I think laws with regard to disabilities are insufficient in many parts of the world. I mean, laws are always insufficient. But I think the question also will remain whether it is the laws only that should take care of the children. You know, laws can do only that much. Crimes cannot be completely prevented by laws. Facilitation of education cannot be done only by laws. Society itself has to.
Yes, society, the government, the enforcement officers, we have to work together to make sure that the law can be upheld.
Like we heard previously about the environmental crimes, the laws are there, the penalties are there, but the judges don't implement them. The police look the other way. So just the laws alone cannot really maintain the society. This is the fact but nevertheless, if the laws are inadequate, we need to improve them. Thank you very much for bringing attention to the issues. Yeah, I think with that presentation and attention to the education of disabled, we will conclude this session. We had a wonderful session, although we took a longer time and we are very much delayed. I apologize for the delay. We had a wonderful session with strata scheme, starting with review about the agricultural land issues, sustainability of smart cities, and COVID-19, and so on and so forth. They are very, very complex issues, and the presentation showed that the researchers in Malaysia are probing into very dynamic issues and at great depth and good outcomes. And this conference seems to be facilitating, and that is the most important thing. I think this conference is facilitating numerous fields of studies under the umbrella of the Quality of Life Conference. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Manjit, for chairing Breakout 2. Inshallah, we will see you in Morocco next year, I think. I hope.
We will catch up again.
Yes, we could catch up. Yeah, we'll catch up in Marrakesh.
Sure. Yes, that's right. That's right. We will do. And Uzbekistan.
Okay, thank you. So once again, thank you, and also thank you to all the participants for Breakout 2. Now we have reached the end for Breakout 2 session. We will commence for Breakout 3 after tea time for 15 minutes.
One presentation for the slot, 15 minutes. So they have a tea.
Yes. So yeah. Okay, so right now we have tea, and in 15 minutes we should commence Breakout 3 straight away.
Alright, we apologize for the time, but please tea is there. So we have to go for the tea. Please 15 minutes and come back. Presenting afterwards for the Breakout 3. We've got a few international presenters for the Breakout 3. So stay tuned. It's going to be very exciting. Right? 15 minutes break.